Tracy, we need to talk
You
to
talk to me about what? Who let you up here?
The Section 8 money you've been
You
collecting
can't
for your
just
own
walk into
family.
my office. I need to see a warrant.
Tracy Denise Jones dedicated her career to housing the working poor. The very program she ran would eventually expose her as one of its most calculated thieves.
I want my attorney.
Step away from the
And you need to
cabinet.
back up out of my office right now. I haven't done a damn...
The video would end in handcuffs. But that wasn't the part that broke people. The part that broke people was learning that the woman who ran Section 8 housing for the entire city of Atlanta, the woman trusted with vouchers for 27,000 low-income families, had spent 7 years stealing from the exact program she was paid to protect. $36,000 in fraudulent housing payments, $27,000 in COVID relief, a $219,000 mortgage built on a lie, and one written confession she handed federal agents herself. Before we go any further, I have to ask, would you trust someone running an entire welfare program with no outside eyes on her own account? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe if you haven't already. We expose cases like this every single week. Tracy Denise Jones was born in 1964 in Macon, Georgia, the second of 4 children. Her father drove a city sanitation truck for Bibb County for 31 years. Her mother worked nights cleaning offices in a downtown medical building. The family lived in a 2-bedroom rental on Houston Avenue, and for most of Tracy's childhood, the rent took more than half of what her parents brought home. She grew up watching her mother sit at the kitchen table on the first of every month, a calculator in one hand and a stack of bills in the other, deciding which utility could be paid late. She told a college admissions officer, decades later, that she remembered the specific sound of her mother sliding the rent envelope across the counter to the landlord. Relief, exhaustion, and a little bit of fear, all at once. Tracy was the first in her family to attend a 4-year university. She enrolled at Clark Atlanta in the fall of 1982, working 2 part-time jobs to cover what her partial scholarship did not. She majored in public administration. Her senior thesis was titled Federal Housing Subsidies and the Working Poor, a Case for Expansion. Her advisor wrote on the cover page that she showed unusual moral seriousness about the policy questions she pursued. She graduated in 1986 and took a junior caseworker position at the DeKalb County Department of Family and Children Services, processing housing applications. The starting salary was $16,000 a year. Her supervisors described her as patient with applicants and unusually thorough with documentation. One annual review noted that she treated every file as if her own family's housing depended on it. She earned a master's in public policy from Georgia State in 1992, paying for it 1 course at a time. She moved into a senior caseworker role, then a program coordinator role. Then, in 2001, was hired by the Atlanta Housing Authority as a compliance specialist. Her annual review that year called her an asset to the agency and a model of professional integrity. She rose, compliance manager in 2005, director of voucher operations in 2011, vice president of program administration in 2015, and in 2017, after a national search that fielded 41 applicants, the board promoted her to senior vice president of the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Her base salary at the time of her promotion was $198,000. With bonuses and benefits, her total compensation crossed $240,000. She had a corner office on the 7th floor of the agency's downtown headquarters, a city-issued Lexus, and a deferred compensation account approaching $500,000. She was 61 years old, single, with no children. Her sister Yvette and Yvette's 2 adult children lived in a 4-bedroom rental in Fayetteville that Tracy had purchased in 2018 for $230,000. She told colleagues she was blessed beyond measure. She told a Georgia State Alumni magazine in 2019 that her career had been built on one principle: never forget what it felt like to wonder if your family would have a roof at the end of the month. She would forget anyway. The Housing Choice Voucher Program, what most people still call Section 8, is the single largest federal rental assistance program in the United States. The Atlanta Housing Authority administers one of the largest local versions of it in the country. At the time Tracy took over, the program served roughly 27,000 low-income households across Fulton County. roughly 70,000 individual people. More than half of them were children or elderly. Here is how it is supposed to work. A family applies. Their income is verified through tax records, pay stubs, and benefit statements. If they qualify, they are placed on a waiting list. In Atlanta, that waiting list often runs 8 to 10 years long. Some families wait a decade for a voucher and never receive one. When a voucher finally clears, the family finds a private landlord willing to accept it. The landlord is vetted. The unit is inspected. The lease is reviewed. And every month, for as long as the family qualifies, the housing authority pays the bulk of the rent directly to the landlord. The tenant pays the rest. The system runs on documents, affidavits, lease agreements, income certifications, inspection reports, identity verifications. Each voucher generates a paper trail that can stretch hundreds of pages over the life of the tenancy. Each document is signed under penalty of federal perjury. The senior vice president overseeing the program had final authority on policy, exceptions, and special case approvals. She set inspection priorities. She signed off on landlord eligibility appeals. She presented program metrics to the board and to HUD officials in Washington. She also had access, through the agency's internal database, to every voucher record, every landlord file, and every applicant's personal information. There was no second set of eyes on her own activity. The compliance officers reported to her. The auditors reported to her. The fraud investigators reported to her. 27,000 families trusted that system. The board of directors trusted it. HUD trusted it. The federal taxpayers funding it trusted it. That trust was about to be tested in a way no one inside the building had ever imagined. The fraud began in 2018, the same year Tracy purchased the 4-bedroom house in Fayetteville. Her sister Yvette and Yvette's 2 adult children, both in their 20s, both unemployed at the time, moved into the property within weeks of closing. The mortgage application Tracy submitted to the lender listed the Fayetteville address as her primary residence. It was not. Tracy lived in a townhouse in Buckhead and had for 9 years. Claiming the rental as a primary residence saved her tens of thousands in interest over the life of the loan. It also gave her a lower down payment and a more favorable rate than an investment property would have qualified for. The total mortgage was $219,780. Every monthly payment after that point was made under a false certification. That was the foundation. The Section 8 scheme was built on top of it. In early 2019, Tracy created a shell business. She registered it with the Georgia Secretary of State under a slightly altered version of her middle name, listing a virtual office address in College Park as the principal place of business. She opened a bank account in the business name using her own Social Security number, but a variant spelling of her surname, Jonas instead of Jones. The variant had been used briefly by her younger sister in the late 90s on a credit card application, and Tracy still had the documentation in a filing cabinet at home. She then submitted a Section 8 landlord packet for the Fayetteville property under that shell business. The application listed the property owner as Yvette's landlord. It was not. Tracy was the actual owner. The packet included a fabricated lease, a forged inspection report, and an affidavit signed by a notary who later told investigators she had stamped the documents without verifying them because Tracy had personally vouched for the file. Once the file cleared, which it did, with no flags, Section 8 began making monthly housing payments to the shell business. The payments went into the bank account Tracy controlled. From there, they were transferred into her personal checking, mixed with her salary, and used for ordinary household expenses. The amounts were modest, just under $900 a month at the start, then $950, then a recertification adjustment to $1,020. The increases were small enough that no automated flag would catch them. Over 4 years and 3 months, the payments totaled $36,442. Then came COVID. In May of 2020, Tracy applied for an economic injury disaster loan through the Small Business Administration. She listed her shell company as a property management firm with 3 employees, projected gross revenue of $240,000 a year, and a payroll of $96,000. None of it was real. There were no employees. There was no payroll. There was no revenue. The SBA approved $27,400. The funds hit her account on June 9th. She bought a used Mercedes for her sister's son. $12,000 in cash from a dealership in Riverdale. She paid down a credit card. She wired $6,000 to a niece in Charlotte. The rest sat in the account and was slowly drawn down over the next 18 months. She was, by every external measure, untouchable. She was the senior vice president of the program. The compliance officers reported to her. The auditors reported to her. No one noticed. No one checked. The catalyst was a name match. In April of 2024, the Atlanta Housing Authority entered into a routine data sharing agreement with HUD's Office of Inspector General as part of a national Section 8 fraud sweep. The OIG had developed a forensic algorithm that cross-referenced voucher recipients, landlord listings, and agency employee records against property tax rolls, mortgage filings, and federal tax returns. The goal was to flag any case where an agency employee or a member of their immediate household appeared anywhere in the voucher pipeline. The algorithm ran for 9 days. It produced 143 preliminary flags across the southeastern region. Most were false positives, common surnames, coincidental addresses, retired employees with no remaining connection to the agency. Investigators worked through the list one file at a time. The flag for the Fayetteville property hit on August 7th. The property was registered on the deed and on the mortgage to Tracy Jones. The Section 8 landlord file for the same property was registered to a Tracy Jonas, doing business as a property management company with the same Social Security number on file. The voucher recipient was Yvette Jones Calloway, listed in the AHA personnel database as the emergency contact for one Tracy Jones, Senior Vice President, Housing Choice Voucher Program. The flag was kicked up to a senior HUD OIG special agent in Atlanta named Lawrence Whitcomb. He was 48, a former forensic accountant with the IRS, and he had been working housing fraud cases for 11 years. He read the file twice. He pulled the deed records, the mortgage application, and the SBA filings. He cross-referenced every signature. By the end of August, he had built a working theory. By the end of September, he had a federal grand jury subpoena. He did not contact Tracy. He did not contact the housing authority. He did not want her to know she was being watched. For 11 weeks, he watched. Whitcomb pulled 4 years of Tracy's bank statements through grand jury subpoena. He pulled her sister's bank statements. He pulled the Shell business records, the SBA application file, the mortgage origination file, and every inspection report and affidavit Tracy had ever signed at the housing authority. The financial pattern was unambiguous. The Section 8 payments deposited into the Shell account moved into Tracy's personal account within 3 to 7 days, every single month, for 51 consecutive months. The SBA funds were spent almost immediately on personal items. Then came the texts. Investigators recovered 58 months of message history from Tracy's personal cell phone after a court-authorized seizure. The exchanges with her sister Yvette were brief but damning. Tracy, March 4th, 2019. Got the file submitted. Don't tell anyone the address. Don't tell anyone. Yvette, same day. I won't. Are you sure this is going to work? Tracy, I run the program. It's going to work. 16 months later, on June 12th, 2020. Yvette, did the COVID money come in? Tracy, yes. Don't text about it again. And in October of 2022, after the SBA had flagged the loan for review. Yvette, they're asking questions. Tracy, stop texting. Call me from a different phone. Whitcomb pulled the notary records. He found the woman who had stamped the fraudulent affidavit. Her name was Eleanor Pruitt. She had known Tracy for 20 years through a sorority alumni chapter. In her interview, conducted on November 14th, she sat across from Whitcomb and a federal prosecutor and admitted that Tracy had asked her to notarize the affidavit without reviewing the underlying documents. She told me it was for her sister, Pruitt said. She told me it was urgent. I trusted her. He pulled the inspection report. The signature on the report belonged to a former AHA inspector named Gerald Kingston, who had retired in 2021. Kingston, when interviewed, admitted that Tracy had asked him as a favor to sign off on the unit without conducting the inspection. He had not been to the property. He had not seen the interior. She was a vice president, he told Whitcomb. I figured if she said it was fine, it was fine. Then came the SBA appeal letter. When the original SBA loan had been flagged for review in late 2022, a routine post-disbursement audit, Tracy had been asked to provide additional documentation. She provided none. Instead, she wrote a personal appeal letter to the SBA, 3 pages long, on her shell business letterhead. Whitcomb read the letter aloud at her arraignment hearing. He paused on one paragraph. The paragraph that, more than anything else investigators recovered, would define the case. I am truly an honest business owner, she had written. I hear the stories how people abused the PPP loans to establish a lavish lifestyle. That is not me. She had signed her own name. The arrest came on the morning of December 11, 2025, at 6:42 in the morning, in the parking deck of the Atlanta Housing Authority headquarters. Tracy had just pulled her city-issued Lexus into her reserved space on the second level. She was carrying a leather tote bag and a travel coffee mug. She was scheduled to lead a budget presentation at 9. 2 HUD OIG agents and 1 FBI agent approached the vehicle as she stepped out. Whitcomb identified himself. He told her she was under arrest on federal charges. She did not run. She did not raise her voice. She set the coffee mug on the roof of the car. I want to know what this is about, she said. You know what this is about, Ms. Jones. I'm the senior vice president of this agency. I oversee a program that serves 27,000 families. I deserve to know what I'm being charged with. Section 8, fraud, SBA fraud, mortgage fraud, false statements, aggravated identity theft. She was quiet for a moment. Her hand went to the door of the car and stayed there. You don't understand, she said. You don't understand what it costs to take care of family. You don't understand what I've sacrificed for this agency. Ma'am, my sister has nothing. My nieces and nephews have nothing. Do you know how many vouchers I've approved for people in this city? Do you know how many families have housing because of me? Ma'am, turn around. She turned around. Whitcomb pulled the tote bag off her shoulder and set it on the hood. He cuffed her wrists behind her back. The coffee mug was still on the roof of the Lexus when the agents walked her to the unmarked car parked 20 feet away. She did not say another word until she asked for an attorney at the federal building. Quick pause. If cases like this make your blood boil, you're in the right place. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and consider subscribing if you haven't. The mainstream press will not touch most of these stories. We do, every single week. The federal grand jury for the Northern District of Georgia returned a sealed indictment on December 9, 2025. It was unsealed at Tracy's first appearance 2 days later. 23 counts: wire fraud, mail fraud, theft of government funds, false statements to a federal agency, false statements on a loan application, and 1 count of aggravated identity theft for using the variant spelling of her name to open the shell account. The Atlanta Housing Authority placed her on unpaid administrative leave the same morning. 3 days later, the board voted unanimously to terminate her employment effective immediately. Her deferred compensation account, valued at $483,000 at the time of her arrest, was frozen pending forfeiture proceedings. She hired a defense attorney named Marcus Bellamy, a former federal prosecutor turned white-collar specialist. Bellamy's strategy was to challenge the aggravated identity theft count as overreach and to negotiate a plea on the substantive fraud counts. The U.S. Attorney's Office, led on the case by Assistant U.S. Attorney Priya Anand, declined the offer. The case was assigned to United States District Judge Teresa Mainwaring, a 2014 appointee with a reputation for sentencing public trust cases at or above the guideline range. Faced with an unwinnable trial, Tracy entered a guilty plea on March 4, 2026, to 15 of the 23 counts. The remaining counts were dismissed as part of the agreement. Sentencing was set for July. At the sentencing hearing, the courtroom was full. Housing authority staff sat in the back. Reporters filled the second row. A retired voucher recipient named Marlene Whitfield, who had spent 11 years on the waiting list before her family finally received a voucher in 2022, addressed the court directly. "I waited 11 years, she said. 11 years on a list. My grandkids almost slept in my car twice. And the woman in charge of that list was stealing the same money I was waiting for. I want her to look at me and say it. I want her to say it out loud." Tracy did not look up. Judge Mainwaring's sentencing statement ran nearly 9 minutes. "Public trust is not an abstraction," she said. "When a person is given authority over a program that determines whether children have a roof, whether the elderly have shelter, whether a working family avoids the streets, that authority comes with a duty so basic it should not need to be stated. Ms. Jones violated that duty knowingly, methodically, for 7 years. She did not steal because she was desperate. She stole while earning $250,000 a year. She stole while families on her own waiting list slept in their cars. And when the federal government gave her a chance to come clean, she sat down at her desk and wrote a letter calling herself an honest woman. This court does not accept that characterization. It never will. The sentence was 87 months in federal prison. Restitution was set at $283,222, jointly and severally. 3 years of supervised release. Permanent ban from federal employment. She was assigned to the Federal Correctional Institution at Aliceville, Alabama, a low-security women's facility approximately 190 miles west of Atlanta. Projected release date, late 2032. She will be 68 years old. The Fayetteville house was seized by the federal government and sold at auction. The proceeds went toward restitution. Her sister and her 2 adult children were given 90 days to vacate. The Atlanta Housing Authority announced a complete restructuring of its compliance reporting lines 4 months after the sentencing. The voucher waiting list, as of this filming, still runs nearly 9 years long. This case made my stomach turn. But the case on your screen right now is somehow worse. Click it.